Welcome to the Real Situation podcast with Jason Campbell. I am thrilled to announce our guest this week, who is a dear friend of mine, Karen Biins. Karen, welcome to the podcast.
It is my honor and pleasure, Jason, always.
And we've been in this setting before. We've definitely had a rich conversation on a podcast before. But today, Karen, this is going to be a different kind of a conversation. We'll get into your work and your legacy and all the things. But today, and we just saw each other last week here in New York City, Karen, and I was so struck by what took place, and that is what brought us here to have this conversation. And what I was struck by, our mutual friend, the incredibly talented stylist and historian, fashion historian, John Moore, who passed prematurely, and you came to town to memorialize his passing and to honor his legacy and his death. And that was just only the starting point of this effort. And I was just so taken by it. I was just like, and I thought it had such implications on our community as a whole that I was like, there is a conversation that needs to take place here about community, about recognition, about legacy, and those kind of things. So, what I want to talk to you about here in this conversation is being the custodian of John Moore's legacy and all that he contributed to this industry, and why you have stepped into the role that you have.
Mm. Well, you know what? I'm not doing it alone. Just to be really transparent, his ex assistant or younger girl than me, of course, called Suhi, was one of the last people to see him alive, and he confided in her and he looked after her, and they were really really close friends. Even though she was his assistant, you know, he treated her as family. And when I found out that he had a heart attack, I assumed he would come out of it. So already I was thinking, if this is the kind of thing that's happened to him, it's good to start thinking now about one's legacy before it's too late and gets into the hands of someone, which is usually a family member, or you know, just a regular schmegular friend at the time, who does not understand the depth of his career and the depth of what's necessary to proclaim his legacy in the right
And
way.
and Karen, I want to pause you for a second on that because while you and I knew John and knew his talent and his contribution, the audience, let's not take it for granted that the audience does. So I wanna just give a bit of a profile on John as I saw him,
Mhm.
and of course this conversation is largely about your portraiture of him, about his contribution and his legacy and so forth. But let's give the audience a bit of an upfront profile on John Moore. John John Moore was a fashion historian operating under the title of stylist. And that gap between his title and his actual stature is part of what we need to talk about today. He was one of fashion's best kept secrets, and he knew it. A stylist and a creative force whose eye was cinematic, precise, and deeply rooted in Black cultural expression. John built a career that touched every corner of the industry. He contributed regularly to Vibe, Vanity Fair, Another, and V magazines, publications that between them defined the range of sensibility from street level cool to high fashion editorial. He was the tour stylist for Alicia Keys. He maintained an Instagram feed that functioned as both professional mood board and creative calling card and an inviolable personal archive. A museum worthy collection of designer vintage spanning over 30 years, curated with the same precision that he brought to every photo shoot. John cultivated deep relationships across fashion's creative community. He was in the room. In a photo he took of Pat McGrath, Edward Enninful, and Gianni Cucci, he captioned it simply, I'm always taking the pics. I'm the best kept secret in fashion. That was John, generous with his lens, certain of his worth, and
Mhm.
beloved by everyone who knew what they were looking at. His legacy lives in the imagery, the collaborations, and the generation of stylists and artists he inspired. He reminded us that styling is not just a service, but it is an art form and an identity. Those are some of the ways in which I saw John. And as I said, you have your own intimate portraiture of him, or having known him over all these decades. And I want to interrogate that in this conversation. But the audience should also know of you, Karen, and who you are, that you're sitting in this seat, that you can appraise, such a talent, because you are a talent, a great talent in your own right. You are the OG, my girl.
Well, I don't know if I
So,
can,
Karen,
but one tries. One
well,
tries to stay in the game, stay in the game with integrity. I've never, ever slept my way to anywhere.
no, you have not done,
Where
Karen. But what you
never I've never done a depth of strategy. I've never backstabbed. I've never played the eviling game of this industry has, I guess built its standpoint on. And I've been blessed and fortunate enough to work with people that aren't like that either. So, not everything is the devil's wear Prada. Like not everything
not
is
at
the
all.
game. I mean, it is to a certain degree in any field that you're in, whatever you do. But I've never sank very low in order to achieve. So, and I say the same thing about John. He was a very good looking young man. He could have done it all in a bag of chips, but he didn't. He did not sleep his way anywhere. And this is something that I always admired about him. I met him at a very young age when he was working on a magazine called One World for Russell Simmons. I think Russell Simmons owned the magazine. Don't quote me, but I think he did. And at the time, I was working for a magazine called True. And then I moved on to work for a magazine called Untold. They were both magazines about Black culture with Black people working on them, which was very, very rare that we are allowed to interpretate, our culture in fashion. Very rare. Usually it's with a sleazier point of view, where, what I admired about John is that he always gave it integrity. He always gave it history. He always gave it the depth of our culture in the best way possible, in the most beautiful way. We were not tokenistic in anything that he did, and I am sure as hell never going to do a tokenistic thing with my own people. It will never happen. If I have to lose a job over it, if I'm asked by a record label to dress someone in a tokenistic way, I'd rather go broke. So, it's the belief in our culture that keeps us here. And, it's hard to be in the game all through the years now and still survive and still have a voice and, still have a silk screen to show what you can do and what you can say. With John, I'd like to say what you said about him pretty much rounds it up. I think that was an incredible interpretation of John and his legacy. He had a line called The Heart Door, which nobody really knew who that was. It was always him. His collection of vintage wipes the floor of anyone else's
well,
nation
that's
of what he thought was brilliant. So many people have jumped on top of it. Like, that movie Wicked, where, the witch
yes,
takes the credit for the green girl.
yes.
Yeah, that's still going on. And it's up to us to no longer allow it. And with John, when he did this whole journey of collecting incredible vintage and called it the heart door, he did it on purpose so you would not be judged. All you see is the work. You don't know the color of the person, you don't know the age of the person. And I think that alone, that part of his life was just as strong as his styling because it showed his point of
Right.
it showed
Right.
ace level, it showed the elevation of when you have someone from culture. Culture's luxury, straight across the board. I have said that loads of times. The word culture means
Yes.
luxury.
Yes.
Without it,
Yes.
there is no luxury. People could jump up and down and act like it doesn't exist, but all about luxury is all about culture. So with John, to me, that's what he represented.
That's a tremendous profile right there. And I think you know John's sort of behind the scenes. Yes, his styling work was more visible to the public, and still we feel that he's unrecognized in that lane. But we know the behind the scenes. We know of his incredible intellect when it comes to designers and curation and design and what's valuable. Like John was a true fashion person. And and
He
we like
lived
to
and breathed, he lived and breathed it every day.
he lived and breathed it every day. Can I tell you? I have pieces that he bought from me that still, take up
No,
space in my takes up space in my head because they were truly the best of what I had at that time. And he would never miss those pieces. He always
yeah.
zeroed in to those pieces. But what just on a generally speaking or specifically speaking, what made John so magnetic to so many people? Because based on that memorial last week, Karen, that you were part of organizing, the turnout was so tremendous. The talents in the room, heavy on stylists, photographers, editors. Beth Ann Hardison, you made sure that she was represented there. You felt that there was a gravitas, that there was something that was significant and important to celebrate in that room. Um, Tell me where that fire came from to make sure that this happened and to make sure such participation was there to celebrate John.
John is a little bit like me. We don't scream and jump up and down like a lot of stylists do today on social media as if they are designers.
Ah,
Tu vois?
that's a thing.
So
We.
the thing is, I don't hate on anyone. I'm glad that any of us up there are there. But what I don't understand is when true talent is being ignored, being gaslit, just because you're shy. Because when you're not from my culture and you're shy, you're celebrated
Yes, you are.
constantly,
Yes, you are.
all day, every day. Even when you're not, all you have to have is 40% of the talent. If you're shy, they're calling you a darling. They're calling you an angel. You're getting the covers, you're getting anything you want. But when you're a brother or sister, it might not be the same unless you're doing exactly what, you know, society wants you to do to represent us in more of a weaker form, a form where
Mm,
we don't have such good taste, in a form where we don't really show our beauty, or if we show that we are more poor than achievable, oh, that's exciting. You know, we're in a really different stage now where those things are now changing.
mm.
And I thought one of the most important things for me was that John Moore's name was heard more than it's ever been before. That his work has been celebrated more than it's ever been before because he was so shy. He wasn't a social butterfly. He was actually the opposite. And what
Right.
happens with that is that just because because he might not walk into the room and try to be the sexiest man. He might not get the job. This is a problem for me.
Mm.
The
Now,
huge problem for me. Also, that he's not so self obsessed that he's in front of the camera. Let the work speak for itself. And that's why I thought, you know, from the assistant to the editors, you know, from the models to the photographers, everyone that came understood John first as an artist, second as a friend. And that's probably why they loved him so much. And that's why I adored him from the minute I met him. I knew he had so much potential because he was so much younger than me. And I saw what he was doing. And I was just like, wow, you're doing this in New York City. It looks like you're in London. It looks like you're more global, more international, you know. And
mm,
I saw it immediately. Even if no one saw it in me, I saw it in him. And, you know, I thought it was important that the world now sees it. And it's
what
just
a
that people have to pass to get this opportunity, but when someone's alive and they're shy, then you're not really allowed to push them but so far. Now that he has passed into his next dimension, hell yeah, I want everybody to know who the hell John Moore was and who
oh,
John Moore is. And
that is so powerful.
and it's enough now it's enough. Now, no, I'm gonna jump up and down. Yeah, I'm gonna scream it out. Yeah. Yeah, now you're gonna have to deal with it. How about that? You know what I mean?
Well,
And recover. You
that
know,
is powerful and beautiful. And now you saw John in a particular way, and I think you're incredibly accurate. But did he have a philosophy besides having exceptional taste? Did he have a philosophy about style and beauty that sort of blanketed his thinking?
I think it was a perfectionist. I know he was a perfectionist. I know he was always open to open himself to new ideas. So he wasn't someone that stayed in one line. He always moved and moved and moved. When he was buying things and when he was searching for great pieces, or if he was doing a shoot, he was always trying to up level his work constantly. It was never enough.
Mhm.
This is an artist, huh?
That's a
This is
talent.
the real. And it's very rare that stylists will talk about another stylist like this. It's very rare because
Very.
the industry is extremely competitive.
Well,
Ex-
on that note, actually, I want to sort of reflect back on something that you said at the memorial. You
Mhm.
described the fashion industry as shady. Now, were you speaking to fashion's amnesia? The way someone of John's talent could contribute so beautifully to this industry, yet his recognition could fall short. Was that specifically to what you were
But
speaking
that's
to?
hands down across the board, 10, 10, 10. That's like, that's what happens to so many people. Like I said, because they're quieter, they don't want to be all up in the video, all up in the camera. You know, that's not what their deal is. Their deal is to create and enjoy the creation. You know, that to me is what it's really all about. And it's not creation to make women look or feel like animals, look or
Mm.
feel like corporate dolls, look or feel like just sex objects. What he also tried to defeat is that in his work. You can look at everything that he's done, and it always has an organic, natural format.
Well, that's a great observation. I was revisiting in the preparation for this podcast. I was revisiting his Instagram feed. But Karen, I mean, so many of those images are so iconic. They
Really.
are so well. art directed, styled photograph that they can transcend all times. They're photographs that you want to be looking at in 50 years, in 100 years, and is a true testament. And not everyone, not every stylist is capable of achieving that sort of those sort of historic resume of images. Such a strong
You know what
glossary.
is too? He had a really great eye for great photographers. He always worked with really good photographers. They didn't have to be the most famous, but they were brilliant. Like the way he shot Alec Weck for the first time
Mm,
and her career at that time, everyone was trying to shoot her as if, she was an object. He shot her as
mhm.
a woman.
He humanized her
That
in many ways.
she's a woman. She's soft. She's beautiful. She's statuesque. She's strong and powerful. But first, she's a woman. Okay. And I thought to myself when he got the job at Vibe, it was the best Vibe ever looked.
It was so
Ever.
good.
And it
So
never
good.
looked the same when he left. I don't know why. Maybe he was making people of color, black people, look too good in the eyes of the commercial world. Maybe that's what it was. Or the powers that be. It might have been competitive. Who knows? But anyone that shuts down good work like that has got another agenda. And as we see today, where is Vibe? I'm looking for it.
It's not to be
Where is it?
found.
Do I need to put on
It's
glasses? I'm trying to find it. I'm not mad
well,
at nobody's hustle. I'm not mad at nobody's reasoning. I'm not mad at all that. But when you shut down a great talent like that, or you try to shut down a great talent like that, that's a personal dig. And this is the kind of thing I guess happens in all jobs where competition can be deadly. And John, it never stopped him. It never stopped him. And I'm so proud of knowing him. He was also a very generous man. If anybody needed anything, all you had to do was call John. That's all you had to do is
mhm,
call a text and you're
mhm.
sorted. And I'm serious. Like in any way, shape, or form, he can help or be there for you. He was there. So he was a very, you know, compassionate and generous human being in the fashion industry, which is very rare. It doesn't allow you to be.
It truly does not. It truly does not. But Karen, you have feel that John did not get the recognition. I feel that John did not get the recognition that he deserved. And when he says something like he's fashion's best kept secret, is that euphemism for saying that in fact he also felt that he did not get the recognition that he
He knew.
deserved?
Don't we all know?
Well,
Don't we all
well,
know
well,
when the
I'm asking you
gaslight
because
just doesn't stop?
I didn't ask him this question. I've never asked him this question while he was alive, so I'm putting it
He
to
will never say.
you.
He would have never said it,
Uh,
but you know he felt it. And
mm,
normal because you have to look around you and watch these
mhm.
people that have 30, 40% of the talent and dedication go all the way up. It has to be frustrating. It's not
Understandable.
that he thought he was the one. The work spoke for itself.
It did.
The way he reinvented Alicia Keys completely
Mm,
in that campaign. Reinvented
100.
her. Was all her
Yes.
ideas. He reinvented her completely. And he worked with Sebastian, but he reinvented her. And this is and was it a reinvention of sleeve or reinvention of oversexed, which is what everybody thinks a black artist should only be. What he reinvented is that he branded her as an intellectual, simple, with clothing, with ideas. And this is what you do. I don't know if I was a mentor to John, but I know I was someone who pushed him because I was working longer. I was at the time he saw what I was doing, and I was working with artists and things like that, like Tori Amos, and he saw how and why I did what I did. and it might have inspired him in the young age, in a young time, but after a while he had his own world, and he did his own thing, and the ideas were just coming out like water.
But what I remember about the time at the sort of genesis of your relationship was John traveling to London so much. I think that time was really important and critical for a download. I think you helped to widen his world view, and I think your position in London, having that exposure, was really tremendous to how he evolved in this industry. And that chapter was important. That
But
chapter
that
was
chapter was
absolutely important.
great. It was great because I worked at a magazine called Untold. I was the
Mhm.
fashion director. Usually, fashion directors of any magazine gets most of the covers,
Right.
and they get most of the stories. John would call me and say, "I've got this person. I'm working with this artist. I've got this model. Should I shoot?" And it would be in a way where he got more covers than I did
Because
because I
he
wasn't competitive. I'm
right.
not competitive. I don't. It's all about what's great for the magazine. It's not just about me.
Mm,
I'm already good. I'm not a pro. I don't have a problem with what I do. I'm not insecure about it, and I was able to. He got more covers than me. This is unheard of. Like, stylists just don't do that because most stylists do magazines as their personal portfolio. You know,
right,
I'd rather do
right,
a magazine to show my eye, not just for myself, but for others, to show that this is what curation is really about. And when he got to Vibe, he gave me shoots from London.
right.
Wasn't angry about them. He wasn't competitive. He was like, "Come through."
It was
Or
collaborative. It was collaborative
was
in a
collaborative. And,
true in a true sense of the word.
yeah, it's like, come on, fall through. You're fierce. You're good at what you're doing. Let's roll. Give
Let's
me
lift up each other. Let's
yeah,
absolutely lift up each other. As you said, that's not necessarily the thinking process in this industry at this time, or it never has been. So yes, those kind of relationships are unique, and in many ways, that's why we're speaking about. That's why
yeah.
you're here to speak about him. And as you said, other stylists may never lift up to other stylists in this way.
They,
So
they
that's
never, they never.
well, there you go. So that's powerful in and of itself. Now,
I mean, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I mean, I am
what?
working on a magazine that doesn't think like that, which is amazing. And,
Mm-hmm.
I think, Sophia with 10, because I right now I'm the global fashion director at 10 Magazine, and 10,
Correct.
and they allow me to shoot so much, and you know, everybody on the team is very, very secure with themselves. So it's all about, we can all shoot and how we're going to make the magazine look major. Like that's usually the conversation. But in most other sentences, no. Most other magazines,
One.
no. It doesn't usually
That's
work that way.
that's not
And
how it.
I think that John got the chance to show his full potential.
Wonderful. Now, what kind of conversations do you think John would want us to have surrounding his legacy?
uh, Create with a very open mind, never give up, regardless. What is what is considered, the best magazine to shoot for? Whoever allows you to do your thing, whoever
Mhm.
allows you to shoot for them. That's what it's all about. There's no, recipe, you know, for good talent. Either you have it or you just don't.
No
And
truer words.
and if you really love the industry, swim in it.
Now, how did he navigate that black excellence, and how did he navigate it in this industry? Like how did he move? How did he navigate as an individual with this sort of like elevated sensibility that he so inhabited and understood?
I mean, he was he had remember he was a man who had a lot of empathy, because he was very, very much believing in God. He went to church all the time. So he wasn't someone that thought evil thoughts, or, like I said, he wasn't like one of these super competitive people. He just did things that he loved doing. And when you do it, when you love what you do, it's not a job. Okay. It's not
Exactly.
that, oh my God, here I go. I got to spend my 8 hours doing this and da 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 da. And this is the check I get paid for. No, no, no. He loved fashion. So he swam in it. He flew in it. He gurgitated himself into it. It was like endless for him. And I think it was non stoppable. It was like an endless yellow brick road of happiness for him. As long as he could look at beautiful clothes, as long as he can shoot beautiful clothes, that's the most important thing for John Moore. If he can look at them, feel them, shoot them, put them on people, that was his life. Loved every second of it. And to me, you have to love what you do or become
Absolutely.
a complete disaster.
He most certainly, I don't
Yeah,
think
he
any.
really did. Like, I spent hours. I would come to New York, and he would have a whole nother rack. I'm like, really? The clothes that they're gonna charge you rent in a minute. Like they're gonna take you.
And he stayed current. He knew exactly
Yeah.
what was going on in the industry at the moment, and that signals a person who, for better or for worse, regardless of what has happened, recognition or not, he truly felt it in his marrow, and he never let up. He never let. He continued to shop and consume and curate a great fashion. And he continued to understand what was happening in the runway, what was going on in the magazines, and who the current talents were. So yeah, no, he never lost
But
any of that.
know, you can't live off your last jump shot 20 years ago.
That part.
You you have to be in real time, or there's no point of you being involved. You cannot live off your last jump shot. You
One
stay,
hundred
you
percent.
got to stay in real time all the time. Fashion moves like water, you know, it moves like the air we breathe. If you want to be in it, you better stay on board because you'll be left to the sidelines very quickly. And,
Indeed.
and it's not that you have to be here, be there, be everywhere, but you have to be aware of what's going on. You have to keep up to date with it because your last jump shot, no one cares. No one cares. Like no one. So, till the cows come home, it doesn't matter. What matters is what's going on right now. Of course, there's legacy and there's past and there's, oh, Google someone and see what they've done and all of that. But if you can stay consistent and in real time, then
Mhm.
you are becoming a new classic. You never go out of date.
Now, how do you plan to further recognize his legacy? You
Yeah.
started to tell me about some of these efforts, but this is the best forum to really announce those in. What are the plans? Because
Well,
we just spoke
I
about.
spoken to Emil at FIT, and I think John Moore's sister had said something as well. I had had a conversation with someone that fluctuated throughout a few people. I will not say any names. And I had an idea of first trying to get together at least 100 of his best pieces and have them as the John Moore collection in some of the fashion colleges and
Mhm.
maybe a museum or two. The John Moore collection, it could be 5 pieces here, 5 pieces there. His name will not be ignored again. It'll be the John Moore Archive. So I thought that would be a great idea. I mean, he has about probably 5,000 pieces, but if we can take 100 of the best and
Mhm.
do something like that, this is what's inspirational. I also thought a book would be great. Not just me, Suki, and maybe one other person called me the other day and said that she was thinking of the same thing. Be great to put a book together, coffee table book of all his imagery. because he was a black man who was that alternative in fashion. I think it's important for all the students coming up from now on to know his legacy and know what he did. So I think that's another idea. And the first real idea was to have um, a fashion fund in his name for a BA or MA student. And what that would entail is that would either pay for part of their tuition at that certain time, or it will have a basis where it will present their first ever collection. Because when you present your first ever collection, even at your college show, whatever, there's always buyers and press there. And that's to me the best way to become discovered. So I thought, have this kind of fashion fund in John Moore's name.
Oh, that's incredibly, incredibly thoughtful. But it also brings to mind celebrating the talent while they are alive. The designer Epperson, who was also at the memorial last week, that was key in his
I
messaging.
Yeah,
And I think that was really important because someone mentioned, well, imagine if John was here and we were all here in his honor to celebrate him and his work and his contribution. It would have landed differently. Not to take away at all from what you did, but yeah, it would have landed differently. And we don't necessarily do that. And we forget the community. Yeah, I was reminded about the community when we found ourselves all in that space, thanks to
yeah,
thanks to your efforts. But however, we don't live like that anymore because the industry, we're no longer in the golden age. There's no longer a place that we all have to be, that we all congregate, and then we're all breaking bread, if you will. That doesn't happen anymore. But in many ways, it should, because if we don't feel like we're in a community, then recognition like this will never take place in the future. And I dare say the generation now, I don't know how they're oriented. And so for us to show these examples, I think is really important. And another point is, I think the generation, particularly Black and Brown talents, they have to understand that they do not have to start from zero, that there have been talents that have come before them who has done wonderful things, who simply have not been recognized. You're not just starting a new mold. There has been a mold there before, and if we hold up someone like yourself who holds up that mantle and reminds the generation that no, we have been doing things for decades and we've been doing them well with great excellence. We need to celebrate and honor our talents like other communities do. And that's why I think this was an important conversation to have, because that's exactly what you're doing, and you're doing it so passionately. You're doing it out of responsibility and
yeah.
accountability and respect.
It has to be done. Enough now. Like no more gaslighting, no more people don't exist, no more, no more. And I don't care what the powers that be want to put certain people in positions. I don't care. And no, neither does anyone else. People want to hear something fresh. People want to hear something brand new. People want to see, justice done. So without being doing it with anger, do it with grace. You know, the internet can shut someone down and can bring them alive. So,
Powerful.
at the end of the day, give birth because,
Yes.
that's what I'm talking about. Because if we don't do it, then we'll end up like all those people that were killed and slaughtered in America. And we're talking about the black community in the turn of
Mhm.
the century, just because they were doing so well. The powers that be just didn't like it. It made them feel uncomfortable. It made them feel like losers. So you know what they did? They went and shut all of it down, slaughtered all the black people. And are we talking about the same town that I think we're talking about? Yeah, Oklahoma.
Mm.
So I'm not going to allow that to happen in this industry if I can help it.
And another period that
Know
this
what
con
I'm talking.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I want to punctuate that for sure. But another period that this conjures up for me, Karen, is really the AIDS epidemic. There were so many talents that were wiped out, and I think it was such a
Yeah,
devastating period that there was not, that collective consciousness that was there. Never mind the people that were there to sort of tell the story and record because they were also dying off. So in many ways, a whole generation of black and brown talents and white and otherwise too, but a whole generation of talents that were wiped out. And by the way, that was a key period. That was a seminal period from what I know of it. That was a seminal period of creativity and talent. And they did not have the opportunity to be remembered, to be recorded. And I think that we're living a different time right now. And we have that opportunity and we have that responsibility. And that's what you have taken up.
and you know what I also kept in mind. I'll tell you another reason why, and it's because when and who I knew quite well, when Andre Leontali died and passed. To me, that was a complete slaughter and disaster of a brilliant man who put people where they are today. And do we have to say names? All I can say is when you get a job on the back of your rich dad, okay. When you're a
Mm.
black man who didn't get anything from their rich dad, who learned the craft, who was incredible as a writer, stylist, creative director, art director, Andre Leontali himself, nobody has done nothing, not half enough for that man's legacy. Nothing. People that were smiling in his face, people that he put on blast, people that he put on completely, saved their ass, made them look good. Let's start. We can't, there's not enough I can say about Andre Leontali. But nobody did nothing with his legacy, as if he never existed. If anybody
And
thing is to rinse out money on the back of him, but they have not done anything. There should be in every college a monument of that man. Any fashion college, anything to do with fashion. The same way that they don't really talk about Diana Vreeland. These are the majors. What's going on? So I thought, no, 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 no. John's not going to live that long and accomplish that much and be swept under the carpet. No, 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 no. I'm not having it. I can't sleep at night.
and
I
I
can't.
have to say, I have to include Virgil Abloh's in this discussion as well. In many ways, considerate of his cultural contribution, his passing was not met with the fanfare that I think that he deserved as well for the contribution. And so, yes, there's a
I think they
history.
gave him a little bit more than Andre Leontali.
To your point, yes,
Totally
yes,
honest. At
uh-huh, fair enough.
least, at least. But I really wouldn't compare him to Andre. He's a different
No,
entity.
it's a different no, it's a
But
different
the
animal. We're
difference
talking about
with them,
recognition.
yeah, but
Yes.
they can't ignore his existence. They can't ignore how he blew up the industry in his own way. And, he brought in the whole, street culture to a luxury level. And, yeah, go
A
on.
cultural movement that
Yeah,
has put
literally,
billions and
literally,
billions of dollars
billions.
in people's pockets. So
Yeah,
let's
billions.
not ignore
Let's not
that
ignore
chapter. Yeah,
that.
let's not ignore that at all. And now to
And
punctuate
they
this
were
conversation,
happy. They were happy to read it.
yes, they
Happy.
were. Yes, they were.
And
No,
I still smell a rat about his death, but I'm not gonna say any more than that.
fair fair enough. Now to
I
punctuate.
still smell a rat. I don't understand how that happened. You know, how can you do so well and do what you do, and then all of a sudden, you know, we live in a very scary time at the moment. You
Oh, that's
know,
true.
very scary time, and people just disintegrate into thin air with no explanation. And you
There's
know,
that.
if that's the case, it's time to blow their name up. How about that? We are not going to shove them under the rug. No, no, no. They're not someone from the past. No. And it's that time right now. Hopefully, doing this will inspire other people to do it.
Well, Karen, I mean, this podcast is called The Real Situation because I like to have real conversations on here, and you most definitely come correct with the realness. Now, to punctuate our conversation here, if this podcast is to be a preserving memory of John's legacy and for the future generation, what is the one thing you would want the listeners to never forget about him?
Uh, his passion.
Mm, mm,
Um, Sometimes, not fashion isn't for everybody. Not everybody can be an artist. Not everybody can be a fashion designer, but they can still work in fashion in one capacity or another.
yes.
Do not delude yourself. At the same time, put the work in, because when
Hmm.
you put the work in, the results will come out. Not everybody likes to have to like everything, but there's room enough for all of us. So whatever you do, if you really have a passion for fashion, there's about 100 different jobs in it, and the choice is yours. If one doesn't work, don't give up. Get into the other. We have to stay in the room. We are the consumer. We keep fashion alive. Why? Because we are the most judged, which means we will always have to spend money on the way we look. Always.
No
We
truer
cannot
words.
wearing a pair of dirty jeans, dirty trainers, and unwashed hair and be considered amazing. They will completely shut us down. They won't even look at us straight in the face. Or they will like the fact that we're like that because it makes them feel comfortable. See, this is the world we live in. Understand it, get into it, and know what you have to do. Put
But
in the
Karen,
work, put in the
the,
work.
but these are the things that are not, these are the things that are not communicated. And that's why it's so important to me to do this podcast because all of these wonderful sound bites that you delivered in this conversation, all these sort of sociological touch points that you raised in this, all of these sort of issues, these are not, as you're speaking to the
Yeah,
choir in many ways. We know these conversations are not taking place. So these are the tidbit of information that should spark the ear of the listener or the viewer. Is really important. Remind them how we're viewed. Remind them of how we need to turn up in the world, as you just said. We can't just like, whatever, throw on some dirty jeans. No, we need to come up, we need to turn up in a way that garners another level of respect or a level of respect based on how we present ourselves. No, it's a very different criteria, and that's why celebrating our friend John Moore, who understood visual imagery, who
yeah, really.
understood great taste. That's why he is not a regular character. He is an extraordinary talent. And
Yeah.
I appreciate that you have taken the time to recognize his contribution and to make sure that he's not forgotten. So in many ways, an ode to you and a celebration of the work that you're doing as a custodian of our talents that have passed prematurely. That's a whole other conversation because that's also part of our community, premature death, heart conditions and all the things, but that's going to take us into a different realm. But I really appreciate you taking the
Well,
time
thank you.
to deliver this message about the incredibly talented John Moore, who recently passed. And I think that this conversation should definitely ignite, more conversations in this interest in our community and outside of it about how we honor our talents. So thank you so much, Karen, for making that time.
You know what? You probably are one of the most intellectual men I know in fashion, and you've been copied and you've been rinsed out, and you've been taken advantage of because people just feel they can, like I said in the movie Wicked, the green girl says something, the good witch takes it and owns it right in front of her.
That's true.
This that right now, it's got to stop. That party
I
is that ship has sailed, and we're no longer allowing it. How about that?
I
I got
I I absolutely hear you.
no, because I've seen it, and
I
it's enough now. Now it's enough. Now
I
we're gonna stop.
absolutely hear you.
We're gonna put it. That party is definitely over. This is not the movie where the black girl dies. It's not gonna happen. And I'm not mad at the world. I just understand how it works. And um, when the boat gets shaky, put some more weight in it so it stays still, so you don't fall out. No, no, no,
Wow.
and no.
No, no,
That's
and
why
no.
it's so weird people would talk about that movie. I was like, did you see the subliminals going on in that movie? It's
Mm.
right in your face. The point is, did you get it?
Well, it definitely has resonance in our industry
Yeah, and
here
out,
of
yes, yes, yes,
fashion. Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
yes.
Well, the OG has spoken.
Ah,
And
stop.
I have digested her words of wisdom, from
You
lived
likewise,
experience,
darling.
from lived experience. So I thank you, and I'm grateful for the work that you are doing and that you have done. So thank you again, Karen.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. And um, I hope I said something that's inspiring. I don't want to be the angry girl.
No.
I just want to be the girl that uplifts and opens the door.
And
Very
you're
wise.
doing that. You are doing that. I am recognizing that. We all recognized that in that room last week. We all did.
Oh,
And that's why there was an urgency. There was an urgency to have this conversation because I was like, no, 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 I don't want to delay this. I'm going to, hold an episode and run this one because yeah, the timeliness of this is important. So yes, let's
okay.
get this going.
Thank you. Thank you, darling.
Thanks, my love. I appreciate
See
you.
you in Paris.
Indeed. Hello. We'll be there in October. Ciao, love.
All right, bye bye.
Bye.